Um, Probably after we sat in a parking lot for about 2 hours from about 11 to 1, 11:30, 1:30 kind of thing. And people were still driving on the roads. We tried to do a little more, get a mile down the road to the nearest hotel. But sitting in the parking lot for 2 hours, going outside in the blizzard winds to use the restroom, that was kind of when we realized this was more than a typical Buffalo snowstorm. We thought we were going to get like the beginning of it. We didn't think we were going to be right in the middle of it. So
Right.
not what we anticipated.
You were visiting family, I'm assuming, or something to that
Yeah,
effect.
I'm originally from West Seneca, South Buffalo area. We do the 2 hour drive all the time. Um, often in the winter, and we took a truck instead of a minivan, that kind of scenario. We went prepared with extra clothes and blankets, like my grandma always taught me to do. We had food because we were taking things for our holiday party. Um, and so we were way more prepared than the customers that got left in Walmart. So
Yeah.
we were very grateful for that because, they didn't have a change of clothes. They didn't have their toothbrush in their car like we did. Little things like that was a blessing for us and unfortunate for the others.
How soon after you guys had actually gotten into the Buffalo area did you guys find yourselves in that parking lot for 2 hours? Was that the same day you had gotten into Buffalo, or?
Yeah, we left early Friday morning, and we knew this storm was going to hit more midday, at least in central New York. My husband had been watching the weather a little bit better than I was, and I'm not a morning person, but I begrudgingly got up early and left early. Um, and probably when we got to around the Darien Lake area, we had already gotten off the thruway, and it definitely got worse. We were slowing our speed as the temperature dropped. We were slowing, decreasing our speed as well. Um, and so we stopped at Transit Road in Walden, which is Depew, I think, right around there at about 11. And even then, we were like, okay, this is 2.5 hours now. We have a little bit further to go. Um, but it was really bad there. And so, we got back on. They didn't have a bathroom. So at that gas station. So we weren't going to stay there too long. So we just kept going. At that point, at around 11 o'clock, we were probably going 10 miles an hour. You could barely see 15 feet in front of you. It was great when we were following a vehicle that was darker in color
Yeah.
because you could see them. Otherwise, you were just praying that you weren't, 30, 40 feet in front of or behind a vehicle that was stopping fast. Um, at that point, 11 o'clock, we didn't see many cars off the road yet. That was, I don't know if people it was the area. It's not as populated probably at that point. Um, and so then we, you know, with the white knuckles and all, about 11 o'clock, we pulled over just to rest a little bit, see if it would let up. It did let up for a little bit, but then within a minute or two, it was blowing again. Um, we tried to get to a hotel
Yeah.
and that didn't pan out because it was just too far and too bad. I mean, when we got back on the road, I think the parking lot was about a half a mile from Walmart. Um, and I was driving. My 16-year-old, who just got his license, was looking out the back window to keep an eye on cars from the left. And my husband was looking out the right and trying to keep me on the road, but not in the wrong lane. It was about 5 lanes at that point, and I finally just was like, "We need a parking lot. Find something." And there was Walmart. So, and we went.
That's incredible. Walmart's that must have been an interesting experience, I guess. I saw a couple videos circulate on Twitter and on TikTok, and as I started to think of the places that I could potentially be stranded in the middle of a snowstorm, Walmart started to rank pretty high on that list. What was that? What was that like?
Um, It was okay. I mean, there were some things that weren't great. It was shelter, they had food, and it was somewhat heated. The temperature did drop through the night. I think we found out that the temperature control is controlled in corporate headquarters in Arkansas, so they didn't have a lot of leeway with that in the beginning. Um, but yeah, I was counting our blessings as well. Once we got going a little bit, we weren't in the car still. We did sit in our car in Walmart for about 5 hours. We had originally gone in, grabbed some extra food. As I said, I have a 16-year-old, but also a 12-year-old. So, um, they wanted something more substantial. And they told us it was closing. It was just about 2 o'clock. I guess a lot of the stores had announced they were closing at noon or two, because the storm had gotten so bad or anticipated it would. And so we went back to the car, spent about 5 hours in the car. Finally, let's go back in. Many other cars weren't moving and never left. There were a few with windshield wipers on, or you could tell were running their car occasionally. And that's when we found everybody. At that point, everybody just kind of had a chair to sit in. They had started to pass out some small blankets. I think the heat had started to drop inside, and they had started to pass out some snacks. In terms of like what the managers were allowed to do, corporate offices really, they were in connection with them, and they were really giving us everything we needed.
Yep.
They passed out the air mattresses, more blankets as it got colder through the night. They made us breakfast in the morning. They opened up some griddles, I believe, in the back room,
Yep.
and cooked some things up for us. They fed us burgers and hot dogs at lunchtime. We got to watch the Buffalo Bills game on a big screen TV. So they really were accommodating, and the manager, it was his birthday on Friday, and he was there with us. Yeah, it felt awful. There were probably close to a dozen employees. A few of them, I think, had already clocked out or tried to go home and came back, and were kind of scattered around the store in different break rooms and whatnot, throughout the night, I think, especially to sleep. So there were close to 40 people. I don't know exactly. But it was probably, better accommodations than maybe your local small hotel that would have ran out of food, or maybe didn't have much more than vending machine food.
Right.
That was definitely a blessing. A friend of mine asked me the other day, well, how would you, what's the number of stars you would give Walmart? And I said 4.5 at first, but then because the heating was really tough,
Yeah.
we passed out hot hands because it was, barely 60 degrees.
Ooh.
So overnight and whatnot, where we were positioned in the store, we were kind of close to the door, but also close to the coolers and the freezers. So I think just where we were placed, it
Yeah.
was just not the greatest for warmth. So we were using hot hands and wearing gloves, keeping the boots on, that kind of thing. So I joked with my friend and said, I'm going to take it down to a 4-star review instead of the 4.5 star. So maybe Target was a little bit better down the road. I don't know.
So what was your total stay?
No, we were in the parking lot at about 2 o'clock that after Friday, and my brother-in-law came and picked us up about 3 o'clock the next day. So we weren't in the store quite 24 hours, but we were in the vicinity for that time. Our typical 2-hour drive took us 31 hours. So that's kind of gives you an idea. I have family that lived 4 miles south of us, and we were headed 9 miles south of Walmart in Cheektowaga. And it was amazing, the difference. My brother's 4 miles south, he had about the same conditions. And he kept telling everybody through text messaging, don't try to go get Jeannette and Chad. Like, it's not worth it. Just stay where you guys are. Because in Orchard Park, Boston, and that area south, they were getting the wind, but they weren't getting the snow. So my sister where we ended up going lives in West Seneca, very close to the Orchard Park border. And her driveway was clear Saturday morning. They finally got some snow Saturday night into Christmas morning. Um, but they were just confused. Like, what do you mean you can't leave Walmart? What do you mean it's these conditions? Because it's not what they were experiencing 9 miles south.
Wild,
Oh,
wild, wild.
yeah.
As far as the whole experience and the whole family is concerned, what stands out to you, or what will you remember most about this past weekend, other than just being crashed in a Walmart for, around about 20 hours?
Um, I've been thinking about that. We talked with a lot of the people. We didn't like come away with some new friendship or, some lifelong friends. But I think for us, we have two teenage boys that are very active. Our months of November and December have been extremely busy. And so I really think it was God's way of saying, slow down and sit back and just relax. We had nothing to do but relax. We did not sleep a lot. We just had to sit there. So I think part of it is just, sometimes we are given those reminders to slow down and do nothing for a little bit, and that's okay. I love to read and I'm a teacher. So during a school break, I always try to read a book, and I took one with me and I couldn't even touch it in Walmart. And while we were sitting in the truck, it was just my mind, I knew would not be able to focus. So it was just a matter of sitting and relaxing and, playing stupid games on our phone or talking about, silly things and
Yeah.
um, trying to keep calm. Um, our boys, I think being older, it definitely helped. They understood that we weren't just being, little wussies about the snow. Like they could realize how bad it was.
Yep.
They realized that being safe was better than taking a risk and ending up in, a snowbank. Um, and yeah, I guess we probably should check the weather a little bit better or travel bans before we go again in the future. Um, but we're just thankful, and we know we're very fortunate because I think the death toll is over 30 at this point.
Yeah.
um, I have some family members who are first responders and in the National Guard, and um, they're still in Buffalo recovering. As of last night, they were still finding people in cars and whatnot, and so we could have been a lot less fortunate, so we're just very grateful.
And my last question here, I want to end on a light note, or as light a note as we can. How good did it feel when you walked back into your house, coming back from Buffalo, and just knowing that all of that was behind you, and normal was back?
It was good. Like I said, we expected to only be gone about 24 hours, maybe 2 nights. We thought we might get stuck a little bit. So it felt nice to be back. The dog came home with us. He was at, the dog sitters. The boys got to open their gifts because we didn't bring everything with us.
Mhm.
And so it was nice to just be home. A little sad that we were leaving family and it wasn't exactly the time we expected. But yes, it was nice. We tried sleeping in a few days and just hanging out, catching up on stuff around the house. And thankful that the weather didn't get really bad here because, anytime you're away in the winter, you worry about electricity or the frozen pipes and things like that. So we were also thankful that nothing happened while we were gone. So
All
yeah.
right. Jeanette, appreciate the time. Thanks so much for taking it. And I'm really happy that your family is safe and sound after that really exciting weekend. That's what we'll call it. Really exciting weekend.
There we go. It's down in the memory books, that's for sure.